In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, I am going to do a big board rewind. I am going to revisit some of the questions and concerns I had about some prospects in my Big Board 1.0 from NBABigBoard.com. Stay tuned. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I am your host, Rafael Barlowe, and I am flying solo again in this episode. And this should be fun because in my Big Board 1.0 that came out on NBABigBoard.com, shameless plug here, I had quite a few questions and concerns about some of the top prospects this season. And in this episode, I am going to answer some of the questions that I propose. But before I get into this episode, I want to let you know that it is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, before we get started, I want to remind you about the Locked On newsletter. Check it out at lockedondaily.com. It is your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage. It is a newsletter delivered right to your inbox every day. And if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel here at the Locked On NBA Big Boy YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode. All right, let's get right to it. So coming into this season, I did my Big Board 1.0 and I had a lot of questions and I proposed it for each prospect, and I'm just going to go back and revisit some of the questions that I had coming into the season. And I'm going to talk about which prospects answered my questions. So I'm just going to talk about the top 14 players that I had on my Big Board 1.0. And these are the guys that I thought were going to be lottery picks coming into the season. And like every year, there's some guys that I was totally wrong about being lottery picks, but that's what happens. You know, that's one of the things that happens every year because when you're producing draft content, you know, you want to put out a way too early big board. I mean, sometimes people put out big boards a year in advance, and you're always going to have guys that don't live up to the expectations. And there are some guys that are total surprises and come out of nowhere. All right, but let's get started with this episode. So coming into this season, I had Cooper Flagg as the number one prospect on my Big Board 1.0. And the question that I had was, can he carry an offense? Now, I thought Cooper Flagg was going to be the number one pick. I knew that he could score and impact the game in other ways, but I had some questions on if he could carry an offense on the college level. I thought he was going to be like, you know, maybe a 1B at best. I thought maybe he was the type of player that could be a really good second option, but just dominate defensively. And I knew he could score, but I did not think he could carry an offense. So the answer to the question that I had coming into the season is yes, Cooper Flagg can carry an offense. He's averaging 19.6 points per game, and he is the leading scorer on a Duke team that is, smacking opponents around and is averaging 83 points per game, one of the top offenses in college basketball. And Cooper Flagg has been better than advertised. And he came into the season with a lot of hype. So my question, again, can he carry an offense? And the answer is yes. He's a better shooter than I thought. Again, I knew he was a really good play finisher, and I knew he could score. And I knew he could pass, and I knew that he was versatile, but I did not know he could carry an offense like this. The shooting has been good, got off to somewhat of a sluggish start. The handle was a little suspect, but that's gotten better. And Flagg has improved throughout the season. So yes, Cooper Flagg can carry an offense. Right. The number two prospect on my Big Board 1.0 coming into the season was Rutgers freshman Ace Bailey. And the question I had was, is he going to show improved shot selection as a freshman? I had some concerns about his shot selection on the high school level. And the answer to that is not really. Same concerns, but the potential is off the charts. He is still a absolutely dynamic scorer when he's on. He does have some hot games and has some cold games. And I've had some conversations with some scouts, and there are still some scouts that believe that Ace Bailey, if he meets everything, if he maximizes his potential, he could still be, or he still is, the best long-term prospect in this class. But everyone said that they would take Cooper Flagg number one. But a lot of people in NBA circles believe that if Ace Bailey puts it together, he could be the best player in this class. So my question was, did the shot selection improve? And I'd say it's still about the same. You're still going to get some very difficult shots, and he's going to make a lot of difficult shots. He still kind of settles for the jumper, doesn't put a lot of pressure on the rim, is going to take contested shots. So the answer is not really. Again, the same concerns, but the potential is off the charts. All right, at number 3, coming in on my big board 1.0, I had his teammate, Dylan Harper from Rutgers. And my question for Dylan Harper was shooting and finishing around the rim. And I had some concerns, not major, minor concerns about the outside shooting and would he be a good finisher around the rim? And those questions have been answered, and the shooting is not a concern. He's shooting 38% on catch and shoot threes. Now, the mid-range pull-up is a little bit concerning. The numbers aren't as efficient. I thought that it may be a concern because he has such a low release on his shot. And I thought because his release is low, then it could kind of turn what could be an open shot into a more contested shot. I thought longer defenders would be able to close out on him off the catch, but he's shooting 38% on catch and shoot threes, but 67% at the rim. He has 100% answered my questions coming into the season about him finishing at the rim, and finishing has been his strongest asset. One, guys can't stop him from getting downhill, but when he's getting downhill, he has been an efficient finisher, and I think it's going to translate very well once he gets to the NBA. All right, at number 4, coming in on my big board 1.0, I had VJ Edgecombe at number 4, and my question was, how will he be used at Baylor? And the reason I was asking that question is simple, because he was absolutely phenomenal when he represented the Bahamas at the FIBA Olympic qualifiers last summer. And then I had some questions, and I've talked about this in previous podcasts. I had some questions about how would he fit at Baylor, because Baylor has a track record of playing multiple small guards, and sometimes their guards are playing a little bit out of position. For example, Keontae George. And my answer to the question I had about how will VJ Edgecombe be used at Baylor is kind of like how I thought coming into the season. I thought that he would play a lot off the ball. We won't get a real opportunity to see him with a lot of on-ball reps, but he looked his best when he had on-ball reps when Baylor had some injuries, and I think they were playing like 7 guys. So he played a lot of minutes, played more so of his natural position, and that's when his draft stock began to skyrocket, because at one point coming into the season, he struggled against good competition, and he just seemed like I don't want to say he wasn't confident, but he just had some absolutely disastrous performances against ranked teams, and I was kind of concerned about those performances, but he showed what he is capable of when he has the opportunity to play with the ball in his hands. So his role at Baylor is about what I expected it to be. I don't think that they maximized his talent and used him correctly, but they had to play him off the ball a lot because they had other guards and that needed the ball. And so the answer to the question is he was used like how I expected him to be used. All right. When we return, I'm going to answer questions on Nolan Traore, Khaman Maluach, Kon Knueppel, Tre Johnson, and more. Basketball season is heating up, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, all you have to do is pick more or less on 2-player projections for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. It is easy to use. It is available in over 30 states, and it lets you mix and match projections across different sports. So if you're looking to build lineups, you can select Luka Doncic for more than 25 points and Jason Tatum for 8 or more rebounds. It is quick and easy. Prize Picks makes it simple. You can set your lineup in less than 60 seconds, and you can stay engaged all game long. You have fast payouts when you win. The money hits your account in as little as 15 minutes, so there's no waiting around. And then they have Taco Tuesday. Every Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts player projections up to 25%, giving even you more value to your lineup. So download the app and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All right, second segment. So again, I am answering some of the questions or concerns that I had about prospects from my Big Board 1.0 on NBABigBoard.com, my newsletter. Check it out. Please support. All right. At number 5, I had Nolan Traore, French prospect that came into the season with a lot of hype, a lot of buzz, a lot of fanfare. There were even people talking about if Traore was on France's Olympic team, he would have helped them out. And that's the team that challenged the USA and went to the gold medal game. So my concerns for Traore, or questions I had coming into the season, was his shooting consistency, his finishing at the rim, and his decision-making. And the answer to that question is I still have concerns. The questions have not been addressed. If you look at his numbers, he is shooting only 28% on jumpers. He's converting 60% at the rim, which is not bad. It's actually a little bit of an improvement. He's been an average defender throughout his career, dating back to the youth levels. And the decision-making has been up and down. He has a 1.72 assist to turnover ratio. I would love to get it to at least 2-1. Perfect case scenario is 3-1. He has games where he looks like he is a very, very good playmaker. Then he has games where he looks like he's sped up and the decision-making is a little shaky. The jump shot is definitely concerning. He's not a consistent shooter, struggles. He's very predictable. You know that it's going to be a step back jumper if he's driving to his left. And the finishing at the rim, I would give that a positive because he's been around 54, 55%. So he has improved, but I think he lacks some creativity around the rim. He's just trying to get straight to the basket. So I think that he needs to, one, improve his left hand because he's very right hand dominant. But the questions that I had coming into the season about the shooting consistency, the finishing at the rim, and the improved decision-making, to me, it's still the same. If the season ended today, I'd still have those same concerns for Nolan Traore. All right, at number 6, Duke freshman Khaman Maluach, and the question I had was very simple. Is he ready? The concerns I had with him, a lot of it was based on the performance that I saw from him at the Nike Hoop Summit. In that event, he just did not look ready. He looked like he struggled with the physicality. I thought Asa Newell came in with like a little chip on his shoulder and kind of punked him. He just kind of out-physicaled him. I was at the game, and I sat right behind the basket, and I saw in the first half, Newell was doing just, little chippy stuff to him, little elbow here and there, not like a wild elbow, but, just basically establishing himself as like, this is a game. A lot of scouts are here. I know people are coming here to watch you play, but you're not on my level. And he struggled with the physicality. So that was a big concern I had coming into the season. Even though he showed some flashes representing Sudan this summer, I thought he played a lot better when he was with the South Sudanese national team. And the answer to that question is he ready? I think the answer is yes. He has had some matchups that could have been challenging for him. The first one was at the beginning of the year against Kentucky, against Amari Williams. He held his own. I do think he's ready. He is better than I thought, and I was very high on him. He shows that he is ready to provide rim protection. He has the physical tools as far as the size and the length. He is going to be able to score efficiently around the rim in the NBA, especially if he ends up with like a really good distributor or point guard. He's shooting 69% from the floor right now. So I do think he's ready. I think that he is for sure a top 10 pick. Somebody may take him as high as 4 or 5, especially if he gets into workouts and he's able to show teams that he has the potential to space the floor. So the question is he ready? And I think the answer is yes. Khaman Maluach is ready for the NBA. All right, at number 7, I had Tre Johnson. And if the season ended today, Tre Johnson would be higher than number 7. I think I can go with him at number 4. You can even make a case for him at number 3. And this is a debate that James and I will talk about in full length. I mean, Tre's production has been better than Ace Bailey's. He's been more efficient. No, he's not 6'10", 6'11". It may not have the same defensive upside. Both came into the season with the reputation as being tough shot takers, tough shot makers, and Tre has had some absolutely phenomenal games also, and he's a much, much, much better passer than he's been given credit for. If you go to NBABigBoard.com, I wrote an article about it, and I clipped up a bunch of his assists. He makes some high-level reads, and then I also put those clips on my Twitter feed. I mean, it's called X, but it will always be called Twitter to me, so check that out. So the question I had for Tre Johnson was, will he get the on-ball reps? And to my surprise, yes, even though Texas has a team that has, in my opinion, it's actually kind of similar to Baylor's in a sense, but they have multiple guys that are best on ball. Tre has kind of established himself as the alpha. He is getting on-ball reps, and he is, like I said, a very underrated passer. If you just watch his passes, like I think it's absolutely absurd that there are people that are comparing him to Cam Johnson. Like if you just really took the time with your own eyes, watch some of his passes. I mean, he's making hook passes. He's finding cutters. He's throwing live dribble skip passes. He's got a little flash and flair to his game. I've even seen some people say, you know what, he might be more Devin Booker than we initially thought. And so the answer is yes, he has got some on-ball reps. We'd love to see him get a little bit more, but Tre Johnson has definitely answered the question I had about on-ball reps. All right, at number 8, I had Duke freshman Kon Knueppel. I had Kon Knueppel at number 8 on my big board 1.0. And the question was, how high can he go? And I think number 8 is around the range that he would go, at least in my opinion, if the draft were today. I actually thought that Knueppel had a chance to be Duke's leading scorer. I thought he was going to maybe average around, 17 a game. I thought it would be close between him and Flagg. I thought he would edge him out by a point or two, and that's something I was totally wrong about. Knueppel has had some strong performances in conference play, but he's also had some games against some of the better opponents where he struggled. But he's a very good, connective passer. He's a good shooter. He's tough. He's competitive. So how high can he go? I think Kon Knueppel will end up being a lottery pick. I don't see a situation where he falls outside of the top 14. But how high can he go? I'd say number 8, where I had him, is probably the highest I can see him going. All right, at number 9, I had Yegor Dimon. I actually had Yegor at number 9 coming into the season on my big board 1.0. And the question I had coming into the season was, is he really a point guard? And will opting to leave Europe pay off? 2 things. Is he really a point guard? I think that's to be determined. Does he have the court vision of a point guard? Yes. He is a very, very gifted passer. Does he have the ball handle and assertiveness and aggressiveness that I would like to see from a point guard, and the ability to collapse the paint and get 2 feet in the paint? I don't think so. But luckily he's 6'9". So if he's not a point guard, there's still he has a lot of room for error at that size. But did the decision to leave Europe pay off? And it has. I mean, it definitely has. And the reason I had proposed that question is because if you remember last year, there was a lot of European prospects. There was quite an influx of prospects coming from Europe to college basketball. And in my opinion, their stock plummeted. They probably would have went higher if they stayed and not got exposed. I'm talking about Adai Mara, I mean, a lot of them ended up going to UCLA. And so I thought like Ethan Almanza last year probably would have been a first-round pick if he would have stayed on a team in Spain or just went somewhere, played limited minutes. I mean, he just has absolutely no buzz as of today. Baba Miller is another guy that I think a lot of scouts were intrigued with his potential, kind of got exposed a little bit when he came to the States. But Yegor is a prospect, along with Kaspar Zakachonis, that it has paid off for them. And I think you are going to see a lot more international prospects skipping playing in Europe, coming to the States. I actually spoke to an agent, and he mentioned, he was like, I could bring a kid over to the States. He could make $2 to $3 million over 4 years, leave with a degree, and then go back and play in Europe. So it makes absolutely no sense for anyone to stay in Europe. So again, the question I have for Yegor Dimon, is he a point guard? To be determined. And will opting to leave Europe pay off? And the answer is yes, it has absolutely paid off. Because even with his concerns, I still think he's going to be a top 20 pick at the very worst. All right, up next, we're going to talk about Donnie Freeman, Noa Essengue, Drake Powell, and Mr. Rocco Zikarsky. But before we get into the last segment, let's talk about FanDuel. Because when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. And with FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you missed the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you are looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, last segment. So at number 10 on my big board 1.0, a player that I am still high on, I was very, very intrigued with coming into the season, and I still am intrigued. It's very, very doubtful that he goes number 10, especially when he has an injury that shortened his season. But it was Syracuse freshman Donnie Freeman. And the question I had for Freeman was, can he put it all together? I was enticed by Freeman's positional size, 6'9", 205, good athlete. He rebounds. I thought he had the positional size and ability to play both forward positions. He has skill. I thought the shooting was promising. And on paper, he had a solid freshman year. He averaged 13.4 points, about 8 rebounds, shot 50% from the floor, 33% from three, and 79% from the foul line. Now, the defensive numbers could have been a little bit better, but I thought he showed flashes of his potential. He's a player that I would still take pretty high, but he had a lower leg injury, and I don't really know the details of that injury. And then Syracuse was not very good this year, so his production kind of fell under the radar in a little bit. But the question was, can he put it all together? And the answer is no, he didn't put it all together. But I thought that he showed flashes and potential. And I do think that there may be a team that may like him and select him in the first round, despite the lack of I guess, buzz from a lot of mainstream NBA draft enthusiasts. All right, at number 11, I had French prospect Noa Essengue. And my question coming into the season was, how high is his ceiling? And to answer to that question is, I think his ceiling is very high. We're talking about a guy that started the season off at 17 years old, was playing in a respectable professional league. He had a good game. I think he had like 20 points and 8 rebounds against the Portland Trail Blazers in a preseason game. And that's at 17 years old with a very thin frame. And he does not have a skill set right now that you can say he can hang his hat on. For some people, that may be a reason to be a little bit cautious, but I think you can build on what he has. He's been productive because he gets to the foul line. He scores off activity, energy points. He just knows how to get to his spots without being like a very creative or crafty ball handler. Still has a long way to go as a shooter. Again, he's just a guy that is so productive. And I had a conversation with his agent when I saw him at Basketball Without Borders. I was like, he might have a little bit of Sean Marion to his game. Not the same pogo stick athlete, but when you scouted against Sean Marion, you didn't say, we got to close out on him, don't let him shoot. You just basically was like, try to put a body on him and contain his energy, because he was able to score sometimes 18, 19 points per game without a single play being ran for him. And he was a guy that just was relentless on the glass. And, even though he was very undersized playing the 4, which that Phoenix team looks like their offense was way ahead of its time. And I think Noa Essengue has a little bit of Sean Marion in his game as far as just being able to impact the game and be productive without plays being ran for him. And then he has the body where he could end up being a Tayshaun Prince type defender. So I think Noa Essengue's ceiling is very high, and he is definitely a player that I would take in the top 10, especially if I believed in my player development squad. All right, at number 12, I had Drake Powell as number 12 on my big board 1.0. I don't think he would go 12 today if the draft were today. And my question was, what will his role look like in North Carolina's offense? And it was a question I had for a reason. And I don't like his role in North Carolina's offense. I mean, wasn't he like starting at the 4 in their game against Duke? North Carolina's offense is their pieces don't match. They're a little guard heavy. They don't have enough bigs. How does a team like North Carolina not have enough bigs? I mean, obviously they've made some changes now. They hired a general manager who's probably going to do a little bit better job of, I don't know, I guess recruiting and NIL budgeting or whatever. But if you look at Powell's numbers, he's playing 25 minutes per game, which, is good. You'll take that. 50% from the floor, 39% from 3, 64% from the foul line. He showed some flashes here and there. I don't think he's a lottery pick based off of his production. But the intrigue with him coming into the season was his defense. I actually liked his offense a lot more than a lot of people. I thought offensively he was better than what he was given credit for, but not a big fan of his role. Hasn't really had a lot of on-ball opportunities, playing in a crowded backcourt that has too many guys that need the ball. And so how his role has looked at North Carolina, it's just basically has not enhanced or really showcased what he's capable of on the offensive end of the floor. All right, at number 13, I had Rocco Zikarsky, 7'2", big from Australia. And the question I had coming into the season, I was right on time with this. Will we get to see enough of him? And the answer to that question is flat out, nope. He's averaging 12 minutes per game, only 4.7 points per game. Australia is a tough league. It's a physical league. It's a grown man's league. Not the best league, at least. I don't want to say that made me sound bad. Maybe not the best league if you're looking for a young guy to get a lot of minutes and contribute, because they're there to win. It's a developmental league with their Next Stars program, but winning is more important than the developmental minutes. And so Zikarsky's in a situation where he's not playing a lot. He's shown some glimpses here and there. I had him at number 13 on my big board 1.0. Unless something drastic happens, he won't be the 13th pick in the NBA draft. I mean, he does have some options for next year. But one of the reasons I was really high on him is that it was like an Albert Schweitzer, some tournament that I saw him in last year. He got an opportunity to play with his age group, and you saw why so many scouts liked him. You saw the physical tools, good athlete, mobile, coordinated, was trying to dunk everything around the rim. And then when you watch him play in Australia against the pros, you see that he just kind of struggles with physicality as expected. I mean, he's a teenager. He's playing against guys that are a lot stronger than him. But the question was, will we get to see enough of him? And the answer was nope. So he has some interesting choices to make as far as where he will be for the 25-26 season. All right, the last question was Ben Saraf. How will his game translate to the NBA? Well, obviously, we don't know that because he hasn't played in the NBA. But the main question or the point I was trying to make is he a 1? Is he a 2? He was coming off a summer where he averaged 28 points per game at the FIBA U18. I think it was Eurobasket or something like that. And he was absolutely dominant, made a big name for himself. I mean, he was already well known. I first live scouted him, I want to say in 2022, and he was a guy that I wrote down as the name to remember. But he had a breakout summer representing Israel. Then he went to Germany, playing with Noa Essengue at Radio Farm and he's been good. He's maintained his position as a projected first-round pick. I had him in the lottery here, and I thought he's been able to show that he is aggressive. He can score on the professional level. I don't know if he's a 1 or a 2, but with his size, it gives him some flexibility there. I think he's a decent passer, or more so of a reactive passer. But my question is, how does this game translate to the NBA level? Because it could get tricky for him because, like I said, I don't think he's a 1, but I don't know if he shoots it well enough off the catch to be a 2. But because of his size and the competitive fire that he plays with and how aggressive he is and the ability to get downhill, I definitely think that there is a spot for him. So, again, I don't know how it translates, but he has done well for himself playing professionally in Germany. Well, that wraps up the guys that I thought were lottery picks. Obviously, I did not have Derek Queen in my lottery on Big Board 1.0. I did not have Kaspar Jakachonis. I didn't have Asa Newell as lottery picks in my Big Board 1.0. And so if you want to go back and check it out, go to NBABigBoard.com and you can just scroll down or you can see my Big Board 1.0 because I had a list of questions for 30 prospects. And in this episode, I just covered the guys that I thought were going to be lottery picks back when I made my first Big Board. Again, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. This weekend, we're going to pod throughout the weekend. I know we haven't put out a lot of episodes this week, but we're going to do pod throughout the weekend. Going to do a stock up, who's hot. Conference tournaments are right around the corner. They actually already started for some. But once again, thank you for all your support, and I am out of here.